I have a growing discomfort with how confidently many Christians speak about heaven and hell, as if they've seen the architecture, they've walked the streets, they know the blueprint, they know how to get there, and there's a kind of certainty that feels less like faith and more like a defense mechanism. And I get it, because if salvation is real, if eternity is real, you better get it right. There's nothing more important than being right about it. I get it, but that's exactly why I've come to believe in the Western world, salvation is the hardest concept to understand, and therefore the most misunderstood. When people begin asking what is orthodox, right? What is true? What is safe to believe? They often outsource their thinking. They lean on the people that came before them, the pastors, the theologians, the traditions, the systems, minds they assume to be greater than their own. But if there's one thing I've learned in business, it's that the ones that are loudest and proudest are the ones to be the most suspicious of. There's no meaningful difference when that same dynamic of being a human shows up in religion. This loud motto that just rubs me the wrong way is, you are going to hell for your beliefs. In that kind of world where this is preached on megaphones everywhere, whether it's on the streets or on social media, you are going to hell because of your beliefs. In that kind of world, fear becomes everything. Fear is not just the starting point, it is the entire system, because that fear gives rise to the belief, and then that belief offers relief from the very fear it created. Fear becomes the cause and the cure, the wound and the comfort. It's as if, think about it like this, right? Like, what else is someone supposed to do after being told that they're drowning except grab the life raft that is being offered? Even if they never questioned who pushed them in the water in the first place. I think many people who are deconstructing feel like they've been pushed into the water, and they're realizing they are no longer subconsciously feeling this tension. It's now out in the open, and it's under a spotlight. And that's a good thing, because when you put things in the spotlight and you ask for light and truth and purity of essence to be the only thing that persists after a fire comes about it, and you have to burn away all this that isn't good and isn't true, you get to see what really is true, right? That's what happens when you put things to the test and you refine it. Believing something in order to be saved, like I need to believe this thing in order to be saved, it feels inseparable from the belief that you need saving to begin with, right? Like, the problem of needing salvation and you have to believe this thing to be saved, like they come up together, like they reinforce each other. And suddenly what you felt like was clarity because you got the life raft, it starts to be, how did I get here in the first place of needing a life raft? I know this is a bit difficult to understand without a different worldview to be able to see through, because many of us, we just see through the lens that we currently have and that we've grown up to have, and that's this Judeo-Christian view of the world. But sometimes I imagine being born in a different time. Maybe you've done this too, but I just imagine being born in a different time, being born in a different place, in a completely different framework of reality, of experience itself. If you were raised in a Taoist family in the East, for example, the weight of your eternal destiny and the eternal destinies of everyone you love would not sit on your shoulders. There would be no constant pressure to get the formula right. No underlying panic about being wrong. in the most ultimate way possible and having your skin peeled off of you for all of eternity because you were wrong and God is right. In fact, I imagine someone from that Taoist perspective encountering a Western missionary, a Western gospel presentation from a layman, and feeling something close to horror at this amazing news that he's being preached. A worldview so saturated with fear, so saturated with guilt and shame at the mere fact of being alive. It feels less like good news and more like something deeply disordered with the whole message itself. This is the difficulty of considering not just what I've experienced in life, but what everyone experiences in life all over the world. How does the Taoist receive this gospel message we so strongly believe is the right one? And yet this is the environment many of us grew up in. I think back to altar calls. A pastor speaking to his congregation at the end going, if you want to be sure that you're going to go to heaven, if you die on the way home tonight, come to the front and pray and receive the Lord. As if eternity hinges on a moment of mental alignment. As if the difference between heaven and hell is a correctly formed sentence in your mind. That if you get that one thing right, oh, you're in heaven instead of hell. Just by the hair and what I see now over and over again are people quietly clinging tightly to belief systems, not because they are deeply convinced, but because they are afraid that their thoughts won't be just right, afraid they'll miss the mark just by inches, and afraid that they won't make it through the gates. Or a different type of afraid, the loud type, those who must stand strong in their faith with their helmet of salvation by going out on the streets with a megaphone and a very loud, very scary message, saying the same thing that their spiritual ancestors did. But then we run into questions that don't fit cleanly inside these systems, questions that expose something deeper, experiences of life from others, testimonies of, should I say, other people, like a Taoist that doesn't even have a framework to interpret this gospel that we have today for the most part in the Western church. But I want to leave you with a bit of a question, a bit of a thought. If you believe an infant who, I'm going to censor words for Yahoo. If you believe an infant who passes away goes to heaven, right? Little infant. Some people, you got to even convince them of that, right? I think it was Augustine that had an issue with that. If you believe an infant who passes away is going to go to heaven, but you struggle to say the same about an abused daughter, a girl shaped by years of violence, fear, and trauma inflicted onto her by a terrible father, and then she ultimately, to escape what she could no longer bear, at what point did she become morally responsible for the evil that shaped her? If you struggle to say that she also will experience the mercy of God, it's something to reconsider for yourself. And if that question comes easy to those of you with such a merciful view of God as to believe she will be in heaven as I do, consider another question. What of the girl, the same girl, who doesn't turn inward onto herself, but instead turns outward and carries that pain that she has into the world and harms others, to then both her life, others, and her father's? Where do we place her? Where does she belong? Is she more deserving? Is she less deserving? Is God the great accountant that is equaling the balances of all of us? These aren't hypothetical questions. They're mirrors, and they force us to confront whether our frameworks are actually capable of holding the complexity of human experience, or if they collapse under it. This is the line of thinking that has changed how I see people, this thought experiment, especially for those who have been through trauma. It's allowed me to be slower to judge, slower to categorize, slower to make stereotypes, slower to speak with certainty about things that may be far more mysterious than we've been taught to admit. In fact, dare I say, have more humility like that of the one that I wish to be known as a disciple and follower of. I'm not claiming to have the answers. If anything, I'm becoming more aware of how little I understand, the answers that I don't have, but definitely more aware that many people don't have the answers, even though they think that they do. I am becoming increasingly convinced that any belief system that is primarily sustained by fear of being wrong, fear of punishment, fear of exclusion, should be examined carefully, because fear is incredibly effective. Look at what it's done. It can make almost anything feel true, and maybe the deeper question of the mystics isn't, what do I need to believe to be saved?